Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're going to learn about Ayurveda, India's 5,000-year-old healing modality, how it can help you with everything from your skin to lowering blood pressure to helping you with your sleep issues or treating chronic disease. I'm Risa Morimoto, your host, and you're watching Modern Aging, where we chat about innovative and holistic ways to care for one another as we age. Be sure to click on that subscribe button and that little bell so you're sure to be always notified when new episodes are uploaded. And of course, you can always sign up onto our email list on our website at thisismodernaging.com. Today's guest is Dr. Bhaswati Bhattacharya. She's an Ayurvedic and holistic family doctor, author, and director of the Dinacharya Institute in New York, where she teaches workshops and training programs for Ayurvedic health coaches. She was trained as a biomedical scientist. She was an international public health specialist and a primary care physician before she dedicated her medical practice to Ayurvedic medicine. To be honest, I knew pretty much nothing about Ayurveda prior to our chat. I was so blown away with its philosophy and simple practices that I had to try it right away. And it works. It is so crazy. I'm so excited for you to try out some of these things at home. That said, if you're going to try some of the things that she recommends, it is much better to be under the guidance of an Ayurvedic doctor who can pinpoint exactly what it is what you need, since everyone is different. So check it out. Today we're going to talk about Ayurveda. So perhaps we can start off by you telling me a little bit about yourself and how you came to be a doctor, and then also how you came to Ayurveda.
I came to Ayurveda because I was looking for things that would help heal my patients. I am of Indian origin, background, and I suppose as a child it was part of our daily routines, although we never called it Ayurveda. My mother just did what she knew to be right, and those things that were right came from her own mother, her own grandmother. So when I was in medical school thinking that I was learning how to heal patients, and quickly realized that for every disease we learned, we only learned the drugs to treat them. We never learned about exercises or foods or other kinds of remedies that were more natural or more in line with what the patients were complaining about. They seemed to just mask the symptoms, and I was a bit concerned. And then I was asked to do a film for the Discovery Channel called Healers, Journeying into Ayurveda. And during the filming of that, I started seeing patients that had diseases that were then, over the 6 weeks of filming, they were gradually cured. Things that I had never seen cured in my world of modern medicine in Chicago, in Boston, in New York, at the meccas of good medicine. And it concerned me that there was so much ignorance and a seeming wall against anything that was not mainstream medicine.
Right.
So that's what got me interested in in Ayurveda in the beginning. After that, I found myself going into India regularly to learn from masters, to learn from various teachers. And as I started learning from them and then applying those to my patients here in New York, I found that things that I was told were permanent in terms of disease were alleviated in these patients. And it fascinated me.
That's amazing.
Modern medicine saying that something is incurable was easily shown curable in Ayurveda, or things that were considered to be permanent disease like diabetes or like irritable bowel, arthritis. So my mom was about 55 and she had arthritis, and she used to creak her way up the stairs and had a hard time getting up from the sofa or out of a chair. And I started giving her remedies like gugulu, which is a type of resin that needs to be combined with an herb, either with an herb called guduchi, which is very good for improving the immune system if there's too many immune cells, kind of killing the joint, let's say the knee joint, or if there's too much schmutz in the knee joint, to give a herb called kaishor, or if there's a lot of heat in the knee, to give something called kanchanar. All of these herbs that I had never heard before.
Are these are Indian
These
herbs?
are herbs of India that are used in Ayurveda. And there's about 7 or 8 different herbs that are combination formulations. I should say they're polyherbals. And I started giving them to my mom in accordance with the seasons and in accordance with her symptoms. And she got rid of her arthritis. And when she got rid of her arthritis, a few years later, she met someone that said, "Didn't you used to have arthritis a few years ago?" She was about 65, 10 years later. And she said, "Yeah, I had arthritis, but I decided I didn't need it anymore. So I let Bhaswati just get rid of it." And, you know, this is a serious concern for many aging patients. So when I saw these kind of remedies working, and I was able to use my family and friends as guinea pigs in the beginning when I was first learning about it, I found that these remedies are so important that I had to learn more about them. Whether they were allopathic or homeopathic or Ayurvedic, whatever is out there is what people want. People don't say usually, "I only want Ayurvedic medicine," or "I only want allopathic medicine." They say, "I have this pain, please help me get better." And so I started moving into a variety of different modalities. So over the last 10 years after I finished my residency in allopathic medicine, I studied aromatherapy, I did courses in homeopathy, I did courses in nutrition, because doctors don't learn anything about foods, really.
Which is
You just
crazy.
see the kind of foods we have in the hospital and the stuff that most doctors eat at lunches and dinners. I also studied formally a course in Ayurveda and a course in yoga. And
Wow.
so I apply those to my patients when they're needed, because I work more on the patient than I do on a disease or on a medicine. I really focus on the patient.
So that's actually fundamental to Ayurveda. So maybe actually we can just step back a little bit and define, because I think a lot of people don't even know what it is, right? I think people probably have heard the word, but beyond that, not understand really what it is.
That's right. So there was a group of people starting about 5,000 years ago who were physicians.
5,000.
Right, they were physicians or healers, and they started looking at not only what is going to help people heal, but what is going to keep them strong. So that wisdom, that knowledge about life and longevity has been collected and is called Ayurveda. Ayur or Ayush meaning longevity or life, and Veda meaning knowledge or wisdom. So Ayurveda is the knowledge of life, and it includes both intervening on diseases as well as preventing diseases. So it aligns with the environment. It says that if there are these cycles of nature, whether it's a daily cycle, day, night, or a monthly cycle, new moon, full moon, new moon, full moon, there's a cycle going on, and there's an annual cycle of the seasons. We go in the Northeast, we go spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. So the body also has cycles. And Ayurveda says that if you follow these cycles, if your life is chaotic and you just get in tune with these cycles, then your body will come back to balance. So paying attention to the lunar cycle is important not only for women and their menstrual monthly cycles, but also for men and their testosterone cycles. Paying attention to the day, we now know from this Nobel Prize that was given on clock genes, that there are genes in each set of cells in an organ that produce certain proteins or certain chemicals, sometimes hormones, that then go to the next step, just like a factory, going from an area of the factory to another, so that there's a coordinated production of enzymes or of hormones. The body also has that, and when we are out of balance, it's like the factory is not working. So
Right.
Ayurveda says follow the daily cycle, follow the seasonal cycle. It says you have 3 opportunities a day to medicate yourself. They are called breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You have 3 opportunities a day to poison yourself. They are called breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What you choose to eat determines what energy you bring in and what building blocks you bring in to become cells of your body. So if you think that a cheeseburger and fries is going to become risa, it will. If you think that a fresh bowl of soup that's handmade with great vegetables just picked from your garden and some old rice that you've kept for more than 180 days so that it's really matured, if you cook those together and you make those, then those will also become risa. So it's your choice what you want to create your body of.
So it's not really a healing modality, it's more like a lifestyle.
It is 17 or 18 healing modalities that are combined and used in different ways for different patients, depending on their lifestyle choices and depending on the seasons and depending on what's easy for them and what they want to do. Some people don't like oils at all. And if they really need oils, I'll show them how to use oils. Other people love oils, and so they use oils as a mainstay of their treatment. And they modulate their doshas in that way.
So what's a dosha?
It's a good question. So there used to be a campaign called "What's Your Dosha, Baby?" And then there was a cosmetic store where the salespeople had to wear these buttons that said, "What's your dosha?" And so they would invite people to do these quizzes. So what Americans know about doshas is that they are fire or air or earth, and they think of these elements. So I like to think of dosha slightly differently because I'm really interested in the authentic Sanskrit texts and conveying that wisdom. Those wise men 5,000 years ago talked about 3 main pillars by which our body is strong, agile, and able. One is, we'll call it movement. So it's the biology, chemistry, and physics of movement. So if you think about the biology of why 2 birds fly in unison or how a mother bird finds its nest, that movement towards its nest is determined by something like a life force, which we don't understand because we're used to using GPS signals and cell phones. And
right. Exactly.
Instead, if we were to understand that this, so just as the goose knows to fly from Florida to Canada, that movement, and then to stop in New York on the way, those movements are determined by something, that life force that knows. And all of that, the biology, we may not have a scientific, logical way of discussing it, but we know it to be true. The same way that we know that certain molecules are attracted to each other, so we have chemistry, or they repel each other, so we know that. Or in physics, how we know that certain forces like gravity, if I drop something, it will fall to the floor. There are electromagnetic forces that send things around. So those forces of movement. We understand that the biology, the chemistry, and the physics have reasons for movement. Ayurveda didn't term those in separate sciences. They just said everything that causes movement is a force, and that is called Vata. So in the body, there are many things that move continuously, such as, you know, when your heart was formed, when you were in the womb and you were a fetus, it started creating the circulation of blood. And that blood has been circulating since that time and will continue until you die. Breath, which started hopefully right the moment that you were born, that breath has been continuous. And we sometimes hold our breath for a moment, but it has to continue. After a few seconds, it continues. So there's that cycle, that flow. When we move our joints, we can't move our limbs unless we were to have these joints, right? So that's another place that's constantly moving, our spine constantly moving, so the joints of the body. Our lower belly to move and push food down and make it into stool and then send it out of the body, that's a 4th place. And the 5th is the fastest thing that moves, which is our mind, our nerve impulses. And there are nerve impulses constantly firing and moving and creating the movement of my arm, my eyes, my thoughts. These areas of movement that are constantly happening in the body are called Vata. So that's one of 3. And if we take those things that I just mentioned that moved, and we look at diseases around those, so let's say you're not breathing properly, or let's say you have issues with your blood flow or your blood pressure, or let's say you have problems with your colon, you have constipation or colitis, or let's say you have problems with your mind, so those neurological diseases and the psychiatric diseases. All of these are diseases of Vata. So the next part is just to learn which herbs, which foods, and which oils will calm the Vata, calm that movement. Not so there's no movement, but so that the river that is moving in a shaky way moves in a calm way toward the sea. And that science of watching how Vata moves is Ayurveda. So to learn those herbs just takes a little bit of time and understanding and seeing how plants move. These were all characterized by these physicians and written beautifully into these texts, which are now available in different languages, including English. And we just learn those, and we learn how to manage Vata. So you can learn all that pathology, what I just taught you in the last 5 minutes. You can learn that and understand 1/3 of all pathology. It's actually quite easy. And logically speaking, it's quite easy because it's things that we see that we then apply the, let's say, Vata calming factor to, and then watch. And you can see people calm down. So I'll give you a couple of hints about that, things that you can use for Vata in a bit. The second two of the 3 pillars, the second one is called Pitta, and the third one is called Kapha. Pitta is the biology, chemistry, and physics of transformation. So it's all the enzymes, all the receptors in the body, all the things that transform from one type of matter to another. So foods breaking down, or muscles being built up, or even those hormones working and, hooking into their receptors and then creating an action. All of that transformation in the body from matter to energy, energy to matter, or matter to another kind of matter, all of that is called Pitta. And any interaction that happens is usually hot. So the words for Pitta are fire. So you hear, Pitta is fire. Well, yes, there is fire. There is sharpness and there's acidity. And there's also this sense of transformation by 2 elements. And the 2 elements that transform are fire and water. So Pitta is those qualities that are symbolized by fire and water, if that makes sense. So if you put something in water, it'll transform. Take a potato, put it in water, it'll either sprout little eyes, or you heat it up and it will cook and you'll have a cooked potato. So that transformation of the potato is Pitta. So there's so much about the universe that is about transformation that we have to see the way that the Ayurvedic wise men were looking in order to use that. So if you go, again, there are areas of the body that have Pitta. So the heat of the stomach and the enzymes that we have there. The transformation of the liver that's detoxifying the blood. The skin that has the ability to transform sunlight and make vitamin D, or to understand information that's coming onto the skin. The eyes that take light and transform. So if something bounces off a book and comes to me, I can read that book, but it's actually the light coming into my eye and transforming information. So that's another kind of transformation. And the last is your mental sense of, this is what I want to do with my life, and then transforming that, your thoughts into actions. So transformation is the key word there. And so when people don't have the ability to transform, when they're depressed and they can't transform thoughts, when they can't transform the food in their stomach, when they can't clean out their blood. So, in America we have this epidemic of people who have fat around their liver and they can't get rid of it. And it's either a cholesterol problem, or it's just a cirrhosis problem, or it's some kind of inflammation of the liver. They don't have any other disease, they just have a fatty liver. And doctors in mainstream medicine can't work with it. Ayurveda says it's very easy, it's just a Pitta problem. So you give a Pitta reducing drug, or a Pitta reducing diet, or a Pitta reducing oil, and watch the person's fatty liver go away. What's the best way to measure it? You can either take a pulse and figure out how the liver is doing, or you can do CT scans and see how much fat is around the liver, or you can watch the person's energy level, and that will tell you how their Pitta is.
Wow. Do you do a combination? So when you say Pitta drug, are you talking about prescription drug, or you're talking about an herbal drug?
This is my shorthand. What I am actually meaning to say is a Pitta calming drug, or a Pitta rebalancing herb. And when I say drug is a very bad term, because I should just say anything that is in substance form. That could be a food, it could be an herb, it could be a polyherbal combination, it could be oils, it could be anything that heals.
And it would be a combination?
Usually it's a combination of herbs. That's the best ones that we find. Because
and they find that it just
cleans out the liver.
Wow.
So every March and every September, I have a whole group of patients that come to me and they do liver cleanses. Why? Because at the change of seasons, hot goes to cold, or cold goes to hot, like March and September in New York. And I have people take 3 weeks of liver cleansing drugs. So they come in once, I get them on their way. Depending on their pulse, I give them either a liquid or a pill, depending on their lifestyle and depending on what other issues they have. And then I say, take this for 3 weeks. So some people say, I don't want to take a pill, I just want to do foods. Then I tell them, here are for example, the brassica vegetables, which are mustard greens, collard greens, Brussels sprouts, the dark green leafy vegetables. Eat plenty of those for the next 3 weeks and don't eat too much other stuff. And that's a really good liver cleanse.
Wow.
So their pitta comes down. The third one was kapha, and kapha is the biology, chemistry, and physics of lubrication and stability and keeping things together so that, let's say, liver cells stay as liver cells and don't suddenly decide they want to become heart cells. Why is that? Because of this principle of kapha that keeps things together that should be together. And in the body, we have several groupings of different types of cells that stay on their own. And they stay lubricated. So the places that we have lubrication are also the places where we have vata, which is drying you out. So the lining in your lungs, the lining in your joints, the lining in the upper part of the stomach before the acidic part, the lining in your mouth and the saliva that's in your mouth, and the lining around the nerves that are lightning fast. Those glial cells that insulate are made of pure fat and heaviness. So kapha has the properties of being very oily, very still, very calming, very soft, very cool and not hot, so that they are perfect complements to either the pitta heat or the vata roughness. And the three together, like a tripod, are the foundations for Ayurvedic diagnosis, treatment, and physiologic understanding of how the body comes together. It is completely different than the idea of organ systems, but it works. It works when we are diagnosing and treating diseases, and it works so well that for 5,000 continuous years, the oldest medical system continuously practiced on the planet, these physicians have been able to take the principles of our forefathers and foremothers and learn how to use them in clinical practice for children, for adolescents, for pregnancy, for very busy people with very busy lifestyles, as well as for the older people.
So would you say the basic philosophy of Ayurveda is less of a healing system and more kind of bringing the body back into balance so then it can fight the disease on its own, or is it?
So instead of fighting, it's always better to rebalance. The idea of fighting is a war language. Ayurveda talks more about harmony. Ayurveda both intervenes on severe diseases, but tells people it's always a lot easier before it gets severe, so let's keep you in check. Sometimes people get sick though, or sometimes they have, let's say you go out to battle and there's a war, and which is of course itself a battle, and they come home with wounds. Ayurveda treats those. Ayurveda also guides a woman through pregnancy, so she has an eventless, very simple and soft series of days, and then she has a sudden movement, the baby comes out, and then she takes care of the baby. It doesn't see it as a pathological condition.
So even if you've had, say, I don't know, high blood pressure, or you've had cirrhosis for a long time, or diabetes for many, many years, can you still help rebalance, or at that point is it too late?
Sometimes it is too late. Sometimes you can rebalance. What I have found is that people who are mentally eager to balance and are just looking for the right bridge, the right conduit, they heal very well. I've had stage 4 ovarian cancer patients who really want to get better and have not had good support from hospitals do really well and cure themselves. I have had people who have had pancreatic cancer who are determined that they're going to make it, and they cure themselves, and the doctors are stunned. I've had people with asthma come back even though they've had asthma since their childhood and now they're in their adult life. I've had people who have diabetes who say, no, I am going to live this life, and they're happy and they live it. So Ayurveda says when you're happy and when your mind wants to participate in the health of your body, anything can happen. So it's that energy component. But I've also seen people who have very minor things like a frozen shoulder or some low back pain, and they suffer for years and they refuse to let go of certain mental, I don't want to say hang-ups, but judgments, and they will not heal. And they use the herbs and the foods of Ayurveda, and Ayurveda coordinates both a Pitta, calming, which is about transformation because there's so many enzymes in the pancreas, and Vata, which is about the movement through the pancreas. And sometimes there's also some schmutz or some stuff clogging the pancreas, which is Kapha, because Kapha has that quality of being very, unctuous and oily. And we use herbs to just clear that out. And I have several pancreas cancer patients who are no longer cancerous. The doctors are not too happy about it because they can't explain it. And after telling a person that she has terminal cancer, they actually get downright unhappy that the patients heal, which tells you something about the doctors and not about the disease. I have also seen patients who have minor issues such as a headache or a frozen shoulder, which they are so attached to either because it gives them attention in the family or it allows them to be sick and to rest, which is something they deeply need and have not had permission for in the past. There are many emotional and mental things that go on for patients in which sometimes they don't want to let go of certain diseases. And I can fully feel that when I meet the patient. So if I meet someone that has something very severe like a low back pain and they've been up and down the series of hospitals to get diagnosis, and then they say, okay, I'm ready to heal, then I will work with him. I find challenges in getting people aligned mentally. Ayurveda is not a religious system, but it is a system, as you said earlier, that is about philosophy and lifestyle. So when people believe in changing their life to heal, that's a deep core worldview or philosophy. Ayurveda is that. Some people say that because it's linked to the Vedas, that it's about Hinduism. Well, Hinduism was a term that was defined and put together by Western Europeans looking at India. I think most of the cultures of Asia, the ancient cultures, have had a sense of worldview or lifestyle that they have just lived. They don't need to define it in a particular way and create boundaries between one lifestyle and another. Sometimes people have a set prescription of how they think they're going to get healed. What Ayurveda does is give them an individualized prescription for their particular lifestyle and their particular body and their mindset, so that what is put together is so particular to the labyrinth of symptoms that they need to weave out from, and then they're out of their disease state. And watching people cure themselves of ulcers that they've had for 20 years, or irritable bowel syndrome, which is currently considered incurable, or arthritis, as we talked about earlier. I've also worked with people that have severe neurological diseases. And my first PhD was working with pharmacology and neuroscience. So we'd see all these very bad diseases, such as the tremors, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, various diseases in which the immune system was attacking the neurologic system, or diseases in which the neurons were not working clearly. Ayurveda says first build up the track, build up that sheath of protection or lubrication around it. And I have thought about it for a long time, why the older people in today's society are getting so sick and they're getting these patterns of diseases. Since the 60s and 70s, we've been talking about how cholesterol is so bad. And as you know, it's recently been reversed. Well, if you've been eating non-fat and low-fat foods, knowing that it's bad for you and mentally feeling guilty about it, but then sometimes sneaking it in, those foods have systematically drained the body of those cells that you had when you were born. Cells require cholesterol. Cells require a fatty layer around the wall of each cell. and also around the kind of tissues, you know, a whole bed of muscle or an entire organ like the liver or the kidney has a layer around it. Those layers are made of fats to prevent water from breaking them down or dissolving them. And so when a society tells you that you can't have those oils, and not just for a year, but for 40 years, of course those people, when they age, they don't have that sheath, that protective sheath around their nerve. So just that simple understanding was something that, having gone to medical school in this country, I didn't understand. So I got to India, and the wise men who are 80, 90 years old were teaching me and telling me, what you need to do is take ghee. What you need to do is take sesame oil and rub it underneath your feet. Look at the symptoms of the cracks under your heels. Take this sesame oil and rub it under your feet and see what happens. In 4 or 5 days, it was gone. And these are problems for which I had spent hundreds of dollars looking for cures and cosmetics and, you know, salves and bombs and various poultices to come to these. You know, I'd get pedicures. I'd try to fix these cracks under my heels. And I just used some sesame oil and I used some ghee and it was gone. And I wondered, and I asked him, well, what was this? He said, it's Vata. You move too much. Your brain moves fast. Your feet move fast. Your life moves fast. You're not getting unctuous rebuilding in your body. You're not getting that foundation rebuilt after every day of fast movement. And you need to have a place where you can rejuvenate, and you're not giving that to yourself. And as I thought about it, I realized that people don't spend time rejuvenating. They just try to squeeze more in the day. They have a morning schedule, they have an afternoon schedule, they have an evening schedule. And I certainly did as a doctor for many, many years. And the wise men just advised me, you know, you have a strong, robust body. Go back and rejuvenate, replenish, refortify by adding oils back into your body. And this was a time when people talked about cholesterol lowering agents, the statins, low-fat butters and margarines, and all kinds of foods that absolutely had no oil in them. And these wise men would laugh and say, oh, these children have no idea what they're doing to themselves.
So when you talk about oils and herbs, so you can rub them on your skin. Are you also drinking them?
Yeah, so let me give you examples of 3 or 4 oils. Coconut oil, which people are using. If you get stuff that's pure white, it's actually been artificially whitened. It should be just a little bit off-white. But that pure coconut oil that is, you know, good and organic and well-made, that is very cooling. So if you have too much of it, you're going to actually precipitate out. You're going to get oil globs everywhere. So that's not so good for you. But in the heat of summer, if you take a jar of coconut oil and it's in liquid form, that's the time to use it. Wherever you live, if you look at that coconut oil jar and it's starting to get solid, that means that you're at a place where you should just stop using it. And when it's fully solid, you shouldn't be using coconut oil. So in the south of India, where coconuts grow, they use coconut oil for most of the year. And you can use it to either moisten your hands. In the summer, when you're very hot and you're constantly sweating, people will take coconut oil and they'll put it here at the nape of their neck. They'll put it here on the fontanelle of their head. I tell parents that if they're going to have kids that go out to do sports and the kids are sweating and hot, like they're going out early morning to play, you know, tennis or to play, to swim, to take some coconut oil and just put it right on the head.
And what does that do?
It will cool down the body. It will take the oil and put it into the body, and it will absorb. People think it doesn't absorb from the fontanelle, but there have been plenty of studies with radioactive tracers that show that if you put oil on the top of the head, it makes its way into the brain. And whether or not modern medicine wants to acknowledge that, it's only going to be 5 or 10 years before someone comes out with the official scientific study, since most of the studies that are done by Ayurvedic people are considered unscientific and therefore not published. So somewhere they're going to see what we have been seeing for thousands of years. And that coconut oil is also used, you can put in a little bit in your belly button, that'll cool you down. And you can also cook with it if you're going to have very hot foods. So That's just coconut oil, which is cooling, and it's really only usable in New York, June, July, August, or if you're living in Florida or California, maybe for a few more months. The king of oils is called sesame oil, and a good organic, unrefined sesame oil is great for 100 different things. I wouldn't cook with it all year round, but in the dead of winter in January, there are 4 weeks that are around the time called Sankranti, when the sun starts, it's in its most southern state and it starts making its way north again. So during that time, which is actually in January, they say it's the winter solstice in December, but it actually, if you look at the calendar, it actually starts in January. It's around the 14th of January. So that in India is celebrated as Makar Sankranti, and around that time they cook with sesame oil and sesame seeds.
Why at that time?
Because sesame oil is the calmer of Vata and some Pitta, but Vata. And during that season, there's a lot of Vata. Vata is cold, dry, light, mobile, and rough. And when you have Vata in your body, and there's that chaotic, cacophony going on, sesame oil will calm it down. So here are a couple of small things you can try. Take sesame oil, warm it up, take a little tablespoon and just put it over the stove for about 5 seconds, or get a double boiler and heat up a bowl of it if you want a lot of it. So just
But this is not any sesame oil.
It's organic, unrefined sesame oil. So you take it. It shouldn't be the toasted sesame oil that's red. It should be a yellow, golden yellow in color. You take it and you put a little bit of it in your hands, warm it up, and just rub it underneath your feet. And then go sit somewhere for 5 or 10 minutes and then go to bed. See how you sleep. I have had countless students, patients, and friends tell me that they sleep restfully. And people who do not sleep restfully see this as such a godsend, because they have been trying every which sleeping aid and prescription, over-the-counter teas and various herbs, and they can't get to sleep. And then sesame oil just helps them sleep. Why?
Why?
Because it brings down the Vata. It calms the mind which is unsettled. The oil just douses it and brings it to a state of calm. And that calm is precious right at those hours when we need to sleep. It's generally advised to do it around 9 or 10 p.m. and not at 3 in the morning, because there are other issues going on if you're up at 3 in the morning. But if you try to go to bed at 9 or 10 or 11 and you can't, try the sesame oil. Sesame oil is also really good before you fly, because you're going to be moving it right? Remember the theme of movement. Vata is the theme of movement. So if you're about to get on a flight, I have people just pack a little bottle, which goes through airport security. They get on the plane, take off your shoes, and rub that in your hands, heat it up, and put it right underneath your feet.
Really?
Put it right behind your ears, put it on your fontanelle, and then of course your...
But I love the smell of sesame oil.
But unrefined sesame oil doesn't have that same smell. Yeah. And most people should be traveling in cotton and natural fibers, so you don't have to worry about oil getting all over everything. So that's a second. A third area is if you're going to go swimming, put sesame oil on your body. And that way you won't come out of the swimming pool. If the swimming pool has chlorine, you won't come in with dry patches, which a lot of people get. And if you've been out in the ocean, the salt can be very caustic to the body. So putting on a sheath of sesame oil in the cooler time, and then coconut oil if you're down in like Bali or some hot place where the waters are hot. So sesame oil can be used in a lot of different ways. Wow. And the fourth way is that if people want to calm down and they're feeling unnerved, so to speak, I tell them to warm up a bowl of sesame oil in a double boiler, or get like one of those little crock pots and get water hot in there and put a metal bowl in there, and it'll heat up the oil slowly. Carry that into the bathroom and just oil up your entire body. Give yourself a self-oiled massage. Then do a little bit of exercise to get the muscles, to get that oil down under the surface. Any toxins that are there in the muscles, including lactic acid, will come up to the surface again when you exercise. And then get into a lukewarm shower. There will be a very thin sheen of oil that is left on your body afterwards, which actually looks beautiful rather than dry skin. But people will also notice that they feel more calm and they feel more robust. They feel like there's more of them inside the body. And the reason is that they're not dry and they're not letting out their electrical impulses. They're holding their bioelectric self inside this sheath of sesame oil.
That is so cool.
Yeah. I do it with older people because, for example, my mom wasn't doing so well, so I started giving her massages from the knees down with sesame oil and just letting her take her afternoon nap. And she'd wake up and she'd say, I just feel so refreshed. For some time, we actually had someone come to the house and give her a massage for all of her, hands, legs, her chest, her back, and then at the end, her hair. And then they would let her go shower. And she just became this very cute, older, very supple woman. She wasn't dry, she wasn't slow, she wasn't arthritic. And it was because of this oil that was now lubricating, literally lubricating her body.
My God, I have to try that with my mom.
You have to try it. So there's two. The third is ghee. Ghee is something that is said to be the most biocompatible to our own cell walls. So ghee is actually clarified butter, but made from cultured butter, meaning it was milk that was made to yogurt, that was made to butter and buttermilk. The buttermilk was taken aside and the butter was boiled and made into ghee. So when you slow boil butter, there's this precipitate that comes out, and the thick butter becomes this golden, transparent oil, basically. So ghee has been used for 5,000 years by the Ayurvedic people to put on their food, to put on their hands. People always ask me, I'm in my mid-50s now, and they always say, well, why don't you have wrinkles? My face cream is ghee. So I have the big tub in the kitchen, and I have a little one near my bed, and at night I just take it and I just literally rub it all around my eyes. I put it all over my skin, and I have
You have great skin.
I have a coating of ghee on my face at night. And I think it's the best night cream. In the winter, I'll use it as day cream. After my shower in the morning, I'll just put a little bit of ghee. Do I smell like butter? Yeah, kind of, but it's not a bad smell. And ghee is a wonderful oil to take people into a place of lubrication and suppleness. So for people who have movement disorders, I tell them to eat ghee regularly. So your question was,
just buy ghee?
You can. In New York, it's pretty easy. For people who aren't in a metropolitan city, I just tell them to order it online. There's pure Indian foods ghee. There's ancient organics. You just have to look for the word cultured ghee, and you can find it in many places in the United States and then all over the world. You have to be careful that you don't just get it from a grocery store, because what they will do is just precipitate the curd out and then just make butter from that. And that's not what you want. You want it to be cultured through the process of yogurt, because the yogurt bacteria are what convert the milk into the proper oils that we're looking for. These short chain fatty acids, which are eaten through our mouth, go down into our gut, where our gut bacteria are, who then take it and actually create these signals to give to our immune system to keep a healthy immune system. And ghee is one of the things that I help patients use so that they can heal from gut disorders.
So you have this amazing book.
Thank you.
I love it because it's stories about your life as well, as opposed to just being kind of clinical, recipes of how to apply Ayurveda, right? What's the importance of daily rituals? How it can actually really help someone heal?
The stories are actually about my parents, and it's a wonderful way to immortalize them, because they shared so much wisdom that I wanted to share that with all the people that didn't get to have my parents as their parents. What they did is incorporate rituals of Ayurveda into our childhood that they didn't call Ayurveda. And each ritual that they showed us, or that they demonstrated just in everyday course of life, when I started reading Ayurveda and realized that those rituals were actually as profound as they are, I found these stories in each of these chapters as a really great way to show the reader that Ayurveda is not just something that's 5,000 years old and only applicable if you live in a village out in India, but we can apply them here, today, now, in the lives that we lead that are much faster, much more complicated, have all kinds of modern technology woven in. And so the stories help you to visualize how that ritual could happen in your life today. And as a reader, I want each person to think about why they would want to do these rituals and maybe why they can't right now do the rituals. And so then I follow it up with medical stories and various health stories or cases. And then I have a practical section that instructs how to put this into life. So the reason I worked on Dinacharya is that it is the foundation of getting better. And I have now had about 1,000 emails from people that say that they have certain diseases that got cured somehow just by doing these daily routines. And I started thinking, well, I didn't give them any drugs and I didn't meet them. How did they just do Dinacharya and heal? And all of a sudden this idea of clock genes came to me, that the factory that is supposed to build one piece and then another, and then this goes to the next, and it builds another and another, and it goes to the next, that coordinated production of something downstream that is efficient and is really good for the body happens when you have that daily routine. And when you don't have the daily routine, all of those rituals that we don't understand, the biochemicals that are changing, or the physiology that's dependent one on another piece, the daily routine kind of sets that up so that everything fits, and the hormones of the body, such as the thyroid hormone, which is called the master hormone, it has something that signals it, and it has a whole bunch of things that it signals. If those are out of turn, you're going to have problems in your body. But the daily routine that tells you, wake up early in the morning, just as the farmers did, just as people who rise and have to take products to market, those early rising people are generally healthier. You wake up and you clean your senses. You put water in your eyes, you put a little in your nose and flush it out, you swish water with your mouth, you are up. You go to the bathroom, you clean with water and not with toilet paper. Why? Because you don't want little residue of stuff outside on the skin after you poop. You clean with water, you wash your hands, you wash your body, your upper body, and you take a little bit of water to drink. Why? To hydrate your body. Warm water melts all that mucus, that's the stuff that's in your mouth. It just melts it all down. So by the time you take these 16, 17 rituals in the early morning routine, it's about 12 minutes of time that it takes every morning, and you're good to go.
Right.
Same
Awesome.
thing with the rituals of the bath, same thing with the rituals of the evening before getting ready for bed so that you can wake up early. So I put these rituals together in the book, and people have really given me the feedback that it is applicable today. It's not just from Ayurveda 5,000 years ago.